Yeah. How's
So,
it going?
not too much. I'm recording now, if that's okay. I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah, sure.
stream it, and we can do it as a little podcast. But no, I'm excited to talk. I'm excited to kind of hear a little bit about what you guys are doing with the NLP stuff, and then also like yeah, just whatever questions you have or whatever you want to know about like challenges I've run into with like the VR dev stuff. Happy to talk about those too. So yeah, just like wherever you want to start or whatever you had in mind. Happy to dig in.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, oh, Jesus, I get the call. Obviously, in the middle of this. So like, what what do we do is, have you ever played AI Dungeon?
Um, yeah, I love that. I love that. I think they took it down, right? You can't even play it normally anymore, I don't think, right?
I think they released it on Steam.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Something
Well,
like
I
that.
played the old version that they had on Google Collabs, and yeah, it was amazing. It's one of the coolest machine learning applications I've ever seen. It blew me away.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is like bring that, but into like classic 3D, game design.
Oh my God, that's
And
incredible.
like we kind of thought how to do it, and they only like the first thing to start is the like characters, because they do the most acting and talking and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And so yeah, and we made a chatbot for um so like this first we had like problems with deploying this, and then we wrote like an open source project, and then we made a chatbot for like fantasy kind of theme for the other game, and for our game that we were making,
Hmm.
and then we kind of released it as an open source, because why not, right? Because
That's awesome.
it takes
What's the name of
uh,
that if we want to go and look at
uh, NPC engine.
NPC Engine?
It's
Okay, that's the one you sent me.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, it's an asset store. It's also like on GitHub as an open source. We're also working on Unreal Engine integration as well, like to bring the same stuff to Unreal. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's what I work in is Unreal. Wow, that's
Oh,
that's really
okay.
amazing though. That's the end game. Is that do you have the idea that someone would be able to like type in or perhaps say something to something in a game and then go through a door and there's like the AI dungeon equivalent generated level?
Well, we didn't work with generated levels yet. We started with like just smart characters that can
That's
like
right. You said that.
th- yeah, yeah. So I mean, we might look in generation later, because right now I'm working on like planning for characters, so that they can be like deciding what next action to take in a smart manner. And there's like also shit ton of features like emotions and stuff that can be assigned to characters. And
Oh wow.
it's no, but probably we will get to the like procedural level generation, but we didn't focus on that because it's already kind of uh, there are like working stuff that does that, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
uh,
Dungeon
like it can be
Architect is one that I've
templated.
seen. It's not AI, but it's kind
Yeah,
of along those lines.
I mean it's still like the algorithms that like do the some sort of like I know I've seen like map generators that use like some water dynamics, erosion, etc., stuff like that. That's
Mhm.
like it's we focus on kind of the different part of the like procedurality, which is like reactive characters and stuff like that.
That's really cool. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that before. And that does make sense too as a place to start. I feel like even though that's going to be really hard to do still, that's in some ways maybe more approachable than doing like a full level, because you start thinking about like a
Yeah,
level.
there's the guy named there's a whole like startup that's working on it, and the professor that started it, I think it's Julian Tegelius, I'm probably butchering their name, but they also like working on more like this AI generation of levels and gameplay.
That's
And
so cool. Do you remember the name of the project they're working on? Maybe I could find it by the name.
I can just Google it now. But
No rush. You can send it to me later
or
too.
yeah, I can send it to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's also people that work on it. But like we've noticed that this like there are chatbots for different kinds of stuff, like for marketing, for for like customer service. There's no chatbots in gaming, and like we just spend a few weeks to integrate it into Unity, and we got like talking with characters. That kind of feels awesome.
That's awesome.
So
Do you guys run your own compute cluster, or is this plugged into GPT-3 or something? I can't remember.
it's completely on edge. So when you download the tool, it runs on the customer PC.
Oh,
So that's
cool.
it.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So
That's
it's
well, of
it's
course
right
that's the
now.
way to do it. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that's where we are starting now, because like we were making it for a PCVR game, and it kind of made sense then. But also we're talking to different devs right now, and they like say like PCVR is is very niche. We
Yeah.
everyone is doing like quests and standalone VRs things. So we'll probably we were working start working on some hosting for that. But
Yeah.
yeah, but
I, I
now it's on edge.
you never know too with the Quest stuff. Probably not today, but you wonder about what headset they release in say 3 years, 5 years. Um, I don't know how expensive that model is, but you might be able to run it on the headset, especially if you could do it in like have like sections of the game where it runs that part and then you get the outputs that like are saved somewhere that you don't necessarily need to be able to display it on demand. That's
Yeah,
definitely
probably.
that's definitely true though that the Quest has like a way bigger user base than PCVR. I when I initially started working on my game, I didn't even know that, and I was trying to decide. I'm like, should I do this for Quest or PC? It's like, how do the user bases compare? And that's what I started getting hit with online. People were saying like, oh yeah, the Quest is just like it's like 10 times bigger or maybe bigger than that. And then I got a Quest for the first time, and I played Pavlov, which is the game that I normally play on PCVR, and it was just like that. It was like even just the server list, you could tell was just like 10 times more, maybe 20 times more, or something like that, which makes sense too, because like what we were just going through, trying to get the audio set up or trying to get together in these levels, like in PCVR to get all this stuff set up and actually working. I mean, you really have to you have to go a long way, and to keep it working too. The Quest really is like a pretty good device. It seems like it just you just put it on and use it for the most part.
I mean that makes sense. Also, like Facebook betting on it, the
Yeah.
whole like rebranding and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've spent a lot there. Even the Quest itself, they're raising the price now. I think they were selling it at a loss for a while. They may even still be selling it at a loss with this price raise going up.
probably. I mean, if we compare it to to the like HTC or I'm not following the standalone that much,
Mhm.
but other glasses are like $700,
Yeah,
six
and
hundred.
and not even really that much better. Especially if you look
Yeah.
at like the software side and things like that. I'm sorry to interrupt here. I gotta step away for just a minute. I will be right back. So I was thinking while I was away. So is it either the version you have now or the version that you're imagining? Is it going to be text based or is it going to be voice based, where you're actually going to be able to talk to these bots and they'll be able to talk back?
So yeah, right now we have voice based,
Wow.
but the voice processing altogether is pretty hard thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean there are so many, like we found so many cool companies that actually do like hire voice actors and like
Hmm.
create custom voices and stuff like
Oh,
that. And
interesting.
we are like probably would try, to get them on board
Mm-hmm.
with us to, to kind of collaborate on this project. But right now we do it together, and it's like, uh, we just use standard data sets. It's like your standard Google Voice
Yeah,
with, with like little emotion and like little expressivity or style. So yeah, we'll probably work on that more, or like try to bring someone in.
that's awesome.
Um,
Is
yeah,
it
but
cool
yeah,
in that experience when you're like in the have you been able to do a demo where you can go in and actually talk to one
yeah,
of these
yeah.
bots? Is it
We
surreal?
have like a demo scene on Asset Store. We should probably like compile it into some playable demo for people to try, because uh, yeah, everyone like uh, yeah, it's pretty surreal, like especially when you kind of, because these like neural networks, they're pretty uh, you can affect what they say back to you, so they're like a bit like a mirror
Mm-hmm.
to the dialogue. So if you role play, they will role play along with you. So especially like if you, it's ideal for role playing, because like when you,
Yeah,
like play along, it turns out pretty awesome. I mean, we also try to make it so that it's, it's hard to take it off track. So we like adjust the data and like the training process to make it so that it's hard to take off track, but still like, uh, you can do that.
that's really cool. If I want to look that up on the asset store and try to download it and compile it myself, what do I actually want to search for?
NPC Engine.
NPC engine.
Uh,
Okay, got it.
yeah, it's
And
basically
is that
it's
on
free.
Unreal too, or is that just like a standalone
Unfortunately,
demo right now?
no, now it's only on Unity Asset
Okay.
Store. As I
Unity
said,
asset store.
we
I'll make
try
sure.
to find someone to help us with Unreal,
Mm-hmm.
because I I mean, I would get into it, but it's like, spending like a
Yeah.
few weeks or month,
You got
to figure out
you got enough
just how
problems.
Unreal works.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
pretty involved. I'm still fairly new to it. I've been learning it for like maybe a year and a half here, and I'm starting to feel like I just kind of am at the beginnings of understanding kind of the logic of the engine. There's a lot there, There's a lot of just legacy stuff built up over the years because it's been around for a while, So even stuff that I'm not necessarily sure they would have done it the same way today. But I mean, it seems good overall. It's just, yeah, it's definitely a lot.
in the most problem I had, like I also like chose the engine a few years back. So I tried Unity, I tried Unreal.
Hmm.
The biggest problem I had is that they don't have like really clear like C++ documentation, because I wanted to code, and blueprints are annoying.
Yep, I feel the same way. I feel the exact same way. I've been working out of C++ in it. That's my intention is to like work with C++ as much as possible, and I've definitely found that to be the same way, where I'm learning it by like scratching my head reading source code, like random YouTube videos, asking in Discord channels and getting these terrible answers where like I do the thing they tell me to do and it destroys the project. It's like, "Oh, cool.
Oh,
Thank you." But yeah,
yeah,
it's been rough, but I feel the same way that like once I get there with it, it's I don't want to work with blueprints. I mean, it's cool that they're there. That's neat and all, but like I know how to write code and that's only going to get in the way. Like I know how much faster it will be if I actually understand how that part works.
yeah. But I mean, from what I understand, that you can do you like work C++ only, or do you write blueprints and then use custom blueprints in some like higher level
So
logic?
I don't know how it used to be, but the way they have it set up now, you can mix and match. Even if you start the project as a blueprint project, if you then go to tools and then new C++ class, it'll add the class, And then you have to do like everything in Unreal is like this, where there's always one extra step. But then you have to like close the editor and like go and like do one extra configuration, so it'll generate some files. But then from there you can like just work with both, and you can use blueprints when you want. And then what a lot of people do is they'll either download or they'll write some C++ and then have the .h file connect into a blueprint. So like they'll write some slightly more complicated logic, maybe with like if statements and stuff, because you don't even get those in the blueprints by default.
Wait, you don't have if
I
statements
know
in
it's
Blueprint?
insane. It's completely insane. There's no if
Okay.
statements. There's no for loops. Like if you go on the, which kind of makes sense too, I guess a little bit. Although I think Scratch has for loops. But anyway, if you go on the Unreal Marketplace, you can see like one of the things that people sell is like advanced blueprints. Like get your for loops here, get your if statements, get your other data structure. You know, it's like it's pretty funny. But I saw stuff like that earlier on. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it this way. This is not going to be the answer. Where's the code?
Yeah. And it took you like how long to start like feeling confident in C++ in Unreal?
I wouldn't say I feel confident in it yet. I'm starting to feel like I have like some idea, like maybe like a month ago, maybe like 2 months ago, like finally
Okay.
starting to hit that point. A lot of it too, is like I'm trying to learn how to do VR stuff with it, which I'm sure you've run into this too. It's like a lot of this stuff doesn't even seem like it would be that bad if it was just a normal 3D game or like a 2D game or something. But it's like with the VR stuff, it's like it's just so new. Like no one's done it before. The docs aren't
Yeah.
there. A lot of times the actual software isn't like developed for it yet. Like the VR template in Unreal Engine is still missing. Just all kinds of stuff just isn't
Oh,
there. Yeah, like smooth locomotion. Like that took me months to set up just to be able to move like Pavlov or like this game.
holy
But
shit.
I know, which is always like it's always you know, a kind of like technical choice you have to make where you're like looking at those trade-offs exactly like you were talking about between Unity and Unreal, because it's like there are a lot of things where it's really I really like Unreal and it's really neat, but there are a lot of other things where you wonder like how much time am I investing now to learn this thing that almost certainly will be patched out in 3 or 4 updates. You know what I mean? They'll just say like, oh, we've added
Yeah.
this to the template now. So those are always kind of like trade-offs and choices to make that you're wondering about, but um, it does seem good. It's starting to come together a little bit, and it's the more I use the C++, the more confident I become in that path. A lot of people I talk to like go back to um, oh, everyone uses blueprints for some things, and you'll wind up using a mix of both. And I'm honestly just having a really hard time seeing that. It just feels a lot more manageable to me, to just be able to work with the code. It's a really pared down C++ as well. Um, they've removed most of the C++ stuff. It's almost closer to Unity, where it's like a just like a templating language more than anything. There's maybe slightly more there, but it's not like full blown C++.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Um, I should probably start learning. Do you want to help us make the integration?
um, maybe I'd be open to considering that. We talk about that. So do you guys already have the plugin for Unity, right?
Yeah, and how it works is like there's like Python server that's open source, and then you have like HTTP requests to it on local machine. So it's also
Interesting.
like yeah,
HTTP. Okay, so the server runs while the game is running, and then you
yeah.
go back to like localhost and hit that. I wonder if Unreal has a concept of that. Surely it does.
I mean, uh, so how we do it in Unity is we just start the process, through through the command line.
Are
So
you talking about the
um,
server process or the
yeah,
list?
yeah, the server
Yeah,
process.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about like in the C++, like how you would go back and make that request. But I bet that's just literally like an already existing class or something. 'Cause I think there are ways to
Yeah,
connect to the
probably.
internet through Unreal. I'm sure that you would just.
Yeah, I mean they have like multiplayer support, right? So
Hmm.
they should just have some
That's true. Yeah,
multi-platform
worst case
HTTP.
scenario. Yeah, that
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be too involved. Yeah, I'm actually kind of like in a spot right now where I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do like for my next consulting job anyway. So this might be a
Okay.
good time to do something like that. Let me think about it a little bit before I confirm for sure, but uh yeah, I'd probably be up for that.
Awesome. Nice, nice, nice. This podcast went pretty well for us. I mean,
It's paying off already.
for like me and my friends. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a pretty cool idea. I mean, honestly, there's a little bit of like of a selfish side for me where it would just be good to see that in Unreal in the first place, you know. It's such a cool idea. Also, I
And
I don't know anything about Unity. I just kind of like to see it in action.
yeah, yeah, Unity is much like simpler
Hmm.
in terms of coding because they have this really streamlined like scripting part, but in terms of like present tools, it's much like you can buy lots of stuff on asset store, right? Like two custom tools, but it's also pretty bare in terms of like pre-made tools for the engine itself that like comes for free. So yeah, that's the minus. But yeah,
Makes sense.
to come
What's the server written in? What's that like?
servers in Python.
Okay.
So I tried to write it in Rust,
Hmm.
to make it compilable like multi-threaded
Yeah.
library instead of a server.
Hmm.
But then I tested it, like the performance. It was like 10 times worse than Python because all the
Really?
bindings
That's
are
funny.
are like yeah, because all the bindings are written in C++, but they're like, Python has all the features and like
Yeah.
all the cool stuff, and for Rust, it's pretty bare bones. So
It's funny
yeah, I
because
mean,
I think usually you would expect Rust to be faster there, but I think maybe because like all the machine learning support for Python, and then I guess at the end of the day, what is that code really doing? But probably just running the models. That's interesting
it's
though. I
all it's all written in C++ in Python. Python just
Yeah, so it's just
presents like the convenient
it's like a thin layer on top.
interface. Yeah,
Well, that's pretty easy to work with then. That's convenient.
yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, I would like to write it in C++ at some point, but yeah, I got too butthurt from the Rust experience to
That's
try it.
honestly like this experience of doing the like the Tonka truck version of C++, you know, where it's like it's in Unreal Engine, they do almost everything for you. It's got all the hard parts taken out and it still sucks. It's like, oof, boy, writing real C++. That does not sound like a delight.
Yeah, yeah. Also, like learning all the bindings that are in C. Yeah, it's a downside, right? Because like also like coming back from Python, let's say, because I work in Python like
Mhm.
professionally, and going back to compiled languages feels painful because it's like so much easier hackable. Like you can do weird stuff that
Yeah,
probably doesn't make sense, but you can do it anyway.
yeah. I find that there's like a curve for what language you're using depending on how big and complex the program gets and how many people are working on it. Like if you only need like 3 lines, like you should just write that in Bash. Don't even worry about Python, you know? Like
Yeah,
if it's like 5 lines, like Perl might even be okay. Like, 40 lines, 150 lines, okay, Python's kind of making sense. Like 10,000 lines, like, ooh, Python is going to start getting a little bit less fun now. You're going to start wishing you had type checking. Like a million lines, you
yeah,
really want type checking. But no, for like one-off projects or like something I'm working on myself, it's just so hard to beat Python. it's such a fun language. And I'm the same way where I've worked with it for so many years too that like I just know it better than I know like another language that I would use. Like I have a friend who really likes Go. And I've heard good things about it. I'd like to try it, but
It's also,
I've just, it's so easy to just reach for Python when I like already know a lot of the libraries and stuff.
yeah, and it's also like, at least in terms of machine learning, it's hard to beat Python, even with C++, because like
Yeah,
lots of stuff is just there for free. Like,
big time. And that was
yeah,
not clear a couple of years ago, but Python is like really like won the machine learning world big time. Um,
I mean
it's
maybe not machine learning, but deep learning definitely.
yeah, that's
Like
fair.
maybe R is for like statisticians and data analysis. It's pretty cool for it, like
Hmm.
the R language, but deep learning, yeah, definitely Python.
Yeah, just like setting up notebooks and things like that. Um, just everywhere. It's just in every library that you look for and stuff like that. I'll tell you, interestingly, the other place that you see, and you may have already noticed this. I haven't got to this part yet, but I assume it's going to be like pretty intuitive once I do. Unreal has a built-in server that you can use for creating game servers, and then
No,
it has some kind of a scriptable language for building the server or for like making commands and stuff that's not C++. It's actually Python there. Um, so that there again, it should be able to. I don't know if that's actually going to be applicable to the plugin at all, but it might be interesting there, or just for other things. It's one of those things where it's like you lift every rock, and it's like, oh hey look, it's Python again.
yeah, they nailed it with like with simplicity,
Hmm.
I guess. But yeah, maybe in 5 years we'll be like just writing natural language and Python will be generated by some codecs.
We're so close to that now. Do you ever mess around with GPT-3 and have it generate code for you?
I actually have a Copilot. Like I don't know, they already released it publicly, and I
Hmm.
already got a subscription. But like was using it since the beta, and I highly recommend it because it's like you just write a function name, and if it's something trivial, it generates it for you. It's like it even generates documentation and stuff, and
Yep.
like saved me like shit ton of time.
I have it
I
installed.
actually
I use it every day. In fact, I even use it in Unreal. They just recently added support to Visual Studio 2022 to where you can use it with the C++ now.
what
That was part of my motivation where I'm like, well, I don't know C++, but like I'll have this to help me learn it. How bad can it be? Still pretty bad, but
well
not as bad as I thought it would be.
I actually didn't know they added it to Visual Studio. Uh, I recently tried to run Visual Studio with it, but didn't find anything. Maybe yeah,
Yeah, they
I
don't
should.
have it in the 2019 version, but it works now in the 2022 version. I did have some bugs when I set it up. I think I have like the fix saved, but maybe it's not even an issue now. But I had to like go in and like delete weird temp files or something. But um, yeah, I love that though. Have you seen what
It's,
people are doing with GPT-3 and Dolly to generate prompts?
just seen tweet today when like people having fun generating the game concept and then the illustrations for it.
Oh, that's so cool. I haven't seen that one. I can't remember the website. I don't have it saved now, but someone set up a marketplace now where I guess someone had the idea of using GPT-3 to try to create better Dolly prompts. So like, hey GPT-3, what would be a good prompt for this? And then like working with that language model to get to like better image models. And then what they're doing is I wish I need to go look up what the actual website is. But what they're doing is they're taking it's just a string of text, It's just like, giant, impressive, whatever the string is, and then they're selling it for like $3 on this marketplace with the image. Like, here's the icon pack or whatever. Pay $2 and get the again. I assume they're just gonna send you a text file full of words. It's like what a time to be alive. Like, what is this?
Prompt engineering is the profession of the future.
Yeah, for real, for real. I really do think that's gonna be a thing too. I was talking to a friend about this. I think it's a really odd time that way, and it's a really odd quality of AI and the way that we're interacting with AI now. That did you see that? It was on Hacker News that prompt engineering slide deck that somebody put out. It's like 45 pages or something with like different ideas of what you can use DALL-E for. One of the things he was talking about in there
I
was the idea of like, oh, like if you want to do architecture, use the name of an architect that you like. If you want to do different kinds of architecture, like go read books about architecture. Go learn more about architecture. Go learn more names of famous architects. And it's like that is such a different axis than you would interact with any other technical tool,
yeah,
and
I
it's
mean the history arts,
exactly
like
the humanities. And I'm
yeah,
I'm I'm one of these people. You know what I mean? Who usually I'm kind of like trashing the colleges a little bit. I'm saying oh it's it's just here in the U.S. especially it's like really expensive and people go into
yeah,
all this debt and it's what degree you got an underwater basket weaving degree or something. What is this? But it's like you look at this now and we've got like this whole generation of people that is really highly educated and like is really interested in the humanities and like talking about things in really like specific and careful and concise ways. It's like weirdly we have like this
it's
whole
their
generation
time.
exactly that just happens to be there like and have
Yeah,
this tool at their fingertips that I don't think most people don't even know about yet. But it just came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? A year ago, I never would have said that. Even a year ago, I was using GPT-3. But I would have never said that about AI. That was like, you know, I mean, being well read is nice and all, but I wouldn't have like applied it that way like a skill. Like, oh, you can use this to actually make
economically
something
viable, right?
rapidly. It's so
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, even like right now working on this project that we do is like I still use this. I've tried to use GPT-3, but I've now switched to the open source models
Hmm.
to generate like data for smaller models to train. And
Okay.
even here, like I read up these advices, on prompt engineer and have to like think how to force it few shot learning to to generate certain structure of text so that it kind of predicts what I need. And yeah, lots of funny stuff. It tries to cheat, what you're asking it.
Yes. That's always funny too, and like leads to weird moments where you're like, "Oh, that's what you tried to do there." It's like
Yeah. And also,
it's hard not to personify it.
it's training you to become really precise in what what you're asking.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like there's a skill there too. In the same way that there's like Googling is a real skill, and you do it for a long enough time, you start learning like what words to include and what to not, you use certain punctuation and stuff. It's not the same, but it feels very similar to that to me, and I feel like I'm at a stage where like I'm just learning that skill, but that like after doing it for a long time, there will be things that like are sort of like this is almost like an AI accent, you know what I mean? Where it's like this is how
Yeah.
I know I should talk to it to be clear in this particular way.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully, uh, it will also improve in terms of like, because right now all the models are uh like single, like doesn't have temporal context. So what I mean is like you cannot, like say, okay, you did this wrong, you did this right, try again. You have to like fix your prompt, right? But uh, the next thing I think that will be huge is like the stateful sort of processing where where you can learn few shot, but actually over multiple tries. Um,
Oh, interesting. I didn't even really know anything about that. So is that like like some of the research that's coming around the corner,
I mean,
or it's already there maybe.
I think the new like Facebook's Blender bot has something like that. I've actually like opened the paper this morning, didn't read it yet. They have like some sort of learning on the go during the dialogue, and um,
Wow.
this could be pretty huge. Like,
Oh my god. Yeah, for real. That adds a lot. Man,
yeah,
that's crazy. I honestly wouldn't have even considered that being an option. I guess I should have, but you think about these models, and that's like they're kind of dumb in a certain way, and that way consistently. But that would really be something if it was able to like learn as man. Stuff just always surprises you.
and that's actually like what we would like to eventually arrive at is like, because right now we also like do a static like persona of character description, for example, right? That he's a farmer or something,
Hmm.
and we have like maybe location description, maybe some events, right? But it's not a big context, and it's just tries role play with limited information. And like what we probably the next step that we'll be doing is to check out stuff like there's a bunch of papers doing that, but essentially it comes down to like there's a task to like they give it Wikipedia, for example, right? And then it has to search it and talk about the Wikipedia articles that it like can interactively search while you're talking with it. And so like we'll try to also add that so you have like the whole world of some information, and then you kind of like and also like all this stored dialogues and stuff, so that it kind of gets more information so that it can act better, like in so that it learns, but not in the way that like it adjusts some weights, but instead of that it like increases the amount of information it can work with. And this is like pretty exciting. I mean, I'm
For real, it's such a good idea. I've never seen anyone talking about it before, other than AI Dungeon, which was awesome. And that's not the same thing exactly. I guess it is kind of similar. You guys really like saw the potential in that idea. Like when I played AI Dungeon, I thought it would be cool if someday like you'd get the rooms and stuff. But that's only half of it. I didn't even think about the almost the better part there, that you're gonna have. Even if it was just text based, it would still be really cool. But I really want to try this demo.
the fun thing is like we have the rooms, right? So if we like
Hmm.
if we imagine like system based game, right, we have every like content except when we come to like the static data that are like dialogues, characters, maybe 3D models, right? That's not changing. And like you know i- because like we tried to make a system based game. That's why we started this thing, right, with NPC engine, because
Hmm.
it didn't like it didn't connect, because we have to draw some behavior trees, do like write dialogues, do some like dialogue templating that feels weird and ugly, and like if we just could link that, it could mean like awesomely like system based game, in the closed
Hmm.
loop that can be like different each time, and like this is the dream, right?
Yes. Yeah, I really like those systems based types of games, but I feel like I haven't even really fully processed the implications of what that would mean to have AI dialogue in the and again in voice, not even just the text, but to be able to walk into some kind of like randomly generated or semi randomly generated level, and there's just an AI there. Not that you can talk to, that's probably just ready to talk to you. They probably have something to say. How are you not going to get pulled into the role play element of that?
Yeah, I mean that's what really like you know the hard part is that like without taking it to to players, it's hard to explain like developers, well, maybe not like VR developers, because we talk to them and they're like, oh, pretty awesome, let me try it, right?
Hmm.
And so we like send them demo, and but like we talk to like classic PC game studios, and they like uh what the fuck? Why would we need like to generate our dialogues like if we can just hire a writer, right?
Really? That's the
Like,
response you get?
yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah,
You know,
that's
that's just like
that's hard.
anything. Anytime there's like the established player, they always have trouble seeing the next thing coming, even when it's that
Yeah.
obvious and hits you over the head that hard. You know what you guys need is a demo video. Just like a short little video showing like what just has to be crazy gameplay footage. I bet that would
I
get a
mean,
bunch of views.
we have a shitty one, right,
Mhm.
on the asset store, but it's pretty bad. So we are actually like, this is the one thing. So we joined the pre-acceleration program recently, like for startups, and basically like with an open source project, and like, guys, how do we do it full time? Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
this is basically the question we were asking. And yeah, they the first thing they said is like, talk to people and get a good demo. And yeah, so we're working on it right now. So
Nice.
if uh, when it's be ready, I can send it to you, probably like in a week or two.
Yeah, I'd love to try it because it just sounds super cool. I think a demo would be great, but like even just a video of it that
I mean,
like
I
people
mean the
could see.
video. Like, we have demo, but the video, like the good video, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
shows like some action and stuff. Like,
Because you
that's
really got something here, and I don't know anyone else who's working on this. It's a really cool idea.
there are other guys called Charisma AI.
Okay.
They are, but they're like, I think they're pretty far ahead now,
Okay.
and they work with like companies like BBC and Disney and stuff like that, and they probably work on more of I'm actually not sure what are they working on, but probably like, experiences that are tailored to some, like, you know like, how do you call it, attraction park, like the with all the, like, or VR custom experiences that you come to buy a ticket and then like do something. I
Hmm.
think that's their uh that's what they do, but I'm not sure. I didn't
Yeah. It's funny how the
find
VR
any.
ecosystem is kind of that way right now, where depending on like company size and like kind of what you want to do, I think most people do start off in that consumer uh, area, which I do think is going to be really high revenue eventually. And it's there's people making money doing it now, but you could definitely see that where people start projects that way, and then you check on it a year later, or a year and a half later, and it's like, oh, they've switched now, and it's like call for quote, get the lease the corporate headset for $40,000 a year, or whatever it is. Um, I think a lot of that stuff will eventually come to the consumer side, but I know
Yeah,
what you mean.
hopefully.
Where you run across a lot of those that are that way.
Yeah. And talking about like, your challenges that you had with VR development, did you do NPC, and how did you do them? And like, uh, um, what's your experience with that?
So I've done the blueprint version of NPC like a couple months ago. That's gonna be right now. I'm working on like getting the guns working. It's gonna be like a FPS multiplayer space shooter. So I'm working on. I've got like the locomotion working. I'm working on getting the guns working. Next after this is gonna be the AI in C++, which I think that's actually not gonna be too bad. It was really obnoxious in blueprints. I think it'll actually be easier this way. We'll see though, because like anything you learn, it always takes longer than you think. Um, but I think that part should not be too bad. And I remember from the blueprints, it sounds like you had already worked with this too, like the behavior trees and stuff like that. They have like some
Yeah.
pretty good like support and stuff built in there. I can imagine where like the sort of like the plugin or like the middle piece might go for like okay, like this is the the AI or the the NPC, and then like here's where you like actually connect in a different controller. I think they have some stuff like that is the thing too, like
Oh,
not to that level obviously, but if you just go on like the Unreal Marketplace, just plugins that are like uh better in PC or something like that, where there's probably an architecture there that's already kind of established.
Like where's there's like the endpoints of some actions and stuff, and then there's like a controller, right?
That's right. Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly how they have it set up, but it's like, yeah, it's
I
like
don't think you can.
you have
Yeah, I
your.
don't think you need something like that.
Yeah, you're right. It's Yeah, you have your top level like controller up here, and then it's kind of weird in Blueprints anyway. The way they do it is they have like a left to right loop that runs of actions. That's like
Mhm.
something like look for player. If you see the player, shoot them. If you don't see the player, keep looking, or something like that. It keeps running, but each of these can be a C++ class. Right. So
Okay.
you can have your controller up here be the thing that is like swapped out, or potentially like this is all just standard stuff, and then you just have like one of these boxes is like look for player, still standard Unreal stuff. If you see the player, then run the NLP model or something like that. So I'm not sure where it would actually make sense to swap it out, but I bet that it's like a standard thing where people like classically do it up here or down here or
Well,
wherever.
that's pretty cool. So like a state machine, right, with blueprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
They actually
I
have
already
that concept as well in Unreal. I don't know if they have it in Unity, but like within this whole system, you get like a list of variables that you can make that are accessible within the whole system. Which again, this is like within Blueprints. I didn't really love the way it was set up, honestly. I mean, maybe it's just me not being familiar with Gamedev, but it seemed kind of like it just seemed messy to me, but I don't know. It may not be as bad in C++ either.
yeah, for Unity, it's just the custom custom editors, custom stuff you buy on Asset Store. There's no like solution there that is pre-made.
Interesting. You get a lot baked in with Unreal. You still kind of have to choose if you're going to use it though, because it's they buy a lot of they do a lot of acquisitions and then say like, oh, okay, this thing is free now, which is really nice. It's nice that they offer that, but there's I mean, I'm sure you've seen the Unreal Marketplace. There's thousands of plugins, so
Yeah,
it's and some of them really are a lot better than the default stuff that they have. So it seems like it's just researching and finding out which are the good ones. It's a really active marketplace too. I actually really like that about Unreal and Unity both. Um, I've met multiple people now who make a full time living just making plugins.
yeah, that's kind of. It would be awesome if we could do this.
For sure. I feel like you got a good shot at it here. I think there's some plugins where it's kind of more of a niche use case, and I'm sure they sell, but I wonder about like for the effort put in, how much they sell. But this though, it's hard to imagine who wouldn't want something like this. I could see it being really popular. And it also has that effect too, where some plugins, I think, you really need them, but it's kind of an abstract concept. Like the for loops is a good example of this, right? Like if you know what a for loop is, and you only work in blueprints, you're like, oh, great, finally I found this plugin that like gives me extra programming concepts. It's hard to make a video about that though. But if you
Yeah,
have a plugin that's doing like graphics effects, or in your case that's doing like this really novel like machine learning thing, I think that lends itself really well to like a demo video that is going to lead like as a funnel people going back and saying like, well, I got to try this. That's my immediate reaction. You telling me is like even still now in this conversation, it's like, man, I can't wait to actually try this thing though. When I say something to it, what's it gonna say back to me? Because that's the other thing too is like with most stuff, the thing that you see in the demo, you're just gonna go into VR and you're going to see the same thing over again, which is really cool. I've done that lots of times, you know. But with your thing, I'm going to see the demo, and then I'm going to go into VR. I'm going to have a completely different conversation than what was in the demo, you know. It's all the cool stuff about machine learning.
Yeah. We really should do this video, but like it's also, a lot of the video is probably the ideal thing, because like we tried to make presentations and stuff, and we had to like do this like little pitch to the guys from the program, and it really like you cannot communicate that. I
No, no.
failed at communicating. Like everyone after the pitch, everyone asked me, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Did you ever see the demo video that Dropbox did on launch?
Oh no, actually I didn't.
So when Dropbox released their launch was they just posted a YouTube video on Reddit and Hacker News, and you can still go back and just watch this. It's like Dropbox launch video or something is the title, but it's just like a 2-minute demo, and it just perfectly captures what Dropbox did, which seems obvious now because it's been around for years and years. But back then, when all you have were flash drives, it was not obvious what Dropbox actually was or why you would want it. But this video made it that way, and I think now even more so with like platforms like TikTok or YouTube Shorts, just like a short little like 30 seconds or 1 minute, I think would go a really long way to explaining to people what it's like. This is a problem too, by the way, which is that like if you don't have a video of it, um, people don't. A lot of people don't know how good the machine learning models have become. You know, like if you're talking to VCs and stuff like that, I'm sure they know. But a lot of people, if you never used GPT-3, you know,
Yeah.
and that's before we even get into like the offline models. You know, I mean, people really don't know about those. Like, it's yeah. I think that's going to be a good way to generate some interest in it. So, can you
Yeah.
use it in Unity today? Like, if I had a Unity game, could I download that and like compile it and use it?
Yeah, it's free. It's there. It only has like a fantasy chatbot,
Mm.
and but the model like for speech has something like 2,000 languages.
Oh my
Not
God.
languages, but like voices. And some of them are pretty shitty. Some of them are okay. But overall, like yeah, you can download it. You can use it. We're also like working on this like the next feature that is planning. It will be also like for fantasy theme, but then we will probably like set up the notebooks, for people to train anything, and we'll probably train a few like different settings for like I don't know, for like modern day and stuff like that. Like they're different genres of stories.
From a developer perspective, what do you imagine the kind of the UI looking like for setting it up for like a future version or the ideal version? Like, is this something that a developer who doesn't really know anything about machine learning should be able to set up, or going in, are you going to need to know something about?
Yeah, ideally, we would like to have like zero
Yeah,
knowledge
that'd be great.
people to just because this is like what we kind of will have when you build like different genre models, right? Different style models. All you have to do is like join, download the tool, and then maybe download or buy like extension that is like steampunk like chatbots, right? And then it's like already you can make steampunk game, and it will like talk something about steam and punks. uh,
Yeah, you can imagine it probably that'll be it'll feel like a giant leap, but it won't be actually that giant of a leap, you know. Man, yeah,
yeah,
it's going to be just a lot of exciting stuff there. Well, I can't wait to try it out. I might have to just install Unity and just figure out how to get that working just to see it in action.
and you don't have to even like do any code.
Mhm.
You can just download the duo, open, like, import some packages, because like the demo when you can walk and talk to people, it requires some like free packages from us at store. But other than that, you just compile it, run it, and it
Yeah,
it should work.
that's pretty straightforward. I've heard Unity's easy to use anyway, so I'll probably do that just so I can actually see it. And then maybe from there too, I can get an idea of like what might be involved in converting it to Unreal. Um, I have a friend who is working on a different plugin. They're actually in the process of converting some parts of it to C++ now. So I can ask them too about like what the process would be there. My intuition is probably not that bad. It sounds like you've kind of got everything done already, especially with it being a server and it being just an HTTP request out. Um, that seems like it shouldn't be too bad. There's just not going to be too much to write there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the hard part is probably like, because what we're trying to do is like so the developers just write persona, write location, and like just write a natural language, just in plain English. So,
Hmm.
and then we kind of assemble it into some, like,
Oh
prompt for
man,
the
that
model.
would be so cool.
And like the problem is, to probably like, uh, I don't remember actually. Do we? No, so just assemble it into a dictionary from different, game objects and stuff like that, and that could be like bothersome. But other than that, like, there's no logic on the side of the engine.
That's so interesting.
And yeah, and like, if you or your friend will like collab on something, we're open, to like, uh we do it open source, so if you have other open source projects that we can, like, help develop or like integrate with, it's like, we are open to that.
Awesome. I'll hit
uh
him up. I'll let him know. He may be interested just off of how cool the project is. I think they're kind of heads down on that one now. It's just like a lot of work, but he might be interested though, just because again, this is one of the cooler things that I've run across in VR. It's just such a neat idea.
Thanks. And so, uh, yeah, it's really like, after we started the program, we were actually like pushed to talk to people.
Hmm.
It gives so much more motivation, when
Yeah.
people like say it's a great idea. You actually go through with it. It's because, uh it was like a basement project for half a year.
Yeah.
And uh well, you know how it is. You just like code something, it's pretty cool, but you never know.
Yeah, there's an effect too where like I'm sure on day 1 it seemed like the coolest thing ever and on day 2 it seemed like the coolest thing ever, but no matter what you're working on, you start getting used to it, and you
Yeah.
forget at least a little bit, at least some percentage of how amazing it is, and then you're taking it out in the world and you're like, "Oh, that's right. This was a pretty cool thing I started working on."
I mean, I hope so. Like, you didn't try it yet, so don't praise it too much.
What were those expectations? Well, all right. Did you have any more questions about like VR dev stuff or anything like that?
I mean, the last one probably is like, if we move to Oculus, we will
Hmm.
be doing hosting, and it
Hmm.
means like, subscription fees either for users or for developers, and we are kind of thinking how can we, play around that, and like, um what do you think? Like, do you think the subscription, because MMOs do that, right? But
Yeah.
for single player games, it's kind of like, it could be the adverse reaction of people that, like, what the fuck? Do we have to pay for playing single player
Yeah,
games now
I
too?
I don't know. It seems like it might be hard to get the individual players to pay for that. Maybe. I would say if you were going to go that route, maybe charge the developers and then let the developers like pass that cost down to the user. But one way that you could do it it seems like it's kind of becoming the standard in the AI world is to sell it as an API. And so you could even imagine a world. I mean, obviously you still got to set up the whatever server infrastructure you choose, but you can imagine a world where like you have like for PC VR it's open source, and for and it's the offline client, and for mobile VR, it's the client is it's still the same, but you've got to connect into our API and then just bill out per request the same way that OpenAI or any of those others do. And that's actually a pretty good business model when you think about it. You know what I mean? Because then you have this server infrastructure that is just like generating money. Like as long as it stands up, you know what I mean? You're not really having to manage it anymore than like just a normal server, and it would build some time to work on improving the models or doing the generation or stuff like that. But I think that's what I would lean towards, just because I've seen that approach now twice with GPT-3 and Dolly, and technically Midjourney is not that way because it's through the Discord, but it's almost is that way. It essentially could be that way if you made like an API in front of like the Discord messages. Um, but that seems like it's probably the best way, because the thing is you're gonna start getting into like weird like rate limiting stuff like that if you do like just normal like server calls, the same way that you're doing now against localhost.
Yeah.
Or you have to like expose more of the infrastructure, or you're like, oh, we made this infrastructure decision 6 years ago. Like, do we still want to be using such and such? But yeah, I think just like a public facing API out to the internet, and you could theoretically expose it to other things too, like if people wanted to use the chatbot service for things outside of games. But I think that's probably how I would approach it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like we thought about something similar, to just make the project hostable and then serve the API.
Yeah. The other thing you could do
But
if you wanted to give it to people for free, is you could have a hosted version like that where you do it, and then you could have like uh, an open source server where they could run the server themselves and call their own API.
yeah,
Um,
that's the general plan. Like to keep it open source,
mhm.
to just modify the project to be like, add some authorization hosting
Yeah,
and just dump it to like, you can use our solution
nice.
on our like web page. Yeah, so that's nice. That like it's generally seems logical, right? And you say it like other people say it, and like we also like thought about it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I wish
totally
there
got
was a
that.
way to do it all in the Quest, especially the fact that you're doing it offline on PCVR. Um, that seems
I
worth
mean,
experimenting with too. If there's a way to do it, I don't know that there is, but if there is, like that seems like it would be worth trying to make work.
it's like a bit different API because the the Android doesn't have like this process. You cannot start the Python server on the Android.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
of course. I didn't think about that. Right, because this is completely different architecture. Okay, yeah. So how would you do it?
I
Huh?
mean, at some point we'll probably like write C++, and use sort of native API, as just DLL library and stuff.
Yeah, that's a
But
real undertaking though. I
yeah,
wonder.
that's
I
that
wonder if there's like a hacky way to do that.
work.
That's interesting. I'll think about that. That's an interesting problem. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course. That's
but even
that's the actual
then,
issue though.
yeah, like if we do it like Android is, we would take like what 3 gigabytes of RAM from from the war console. So it's like,
the whole world slows down and starts getting pixelated. The A is like, "Hello, how are you today?" Goes back to normal.
I get that on like on demo when I run browser and some like code editor. I get, and I run the demo. I get the slowdown or freeze when AI says something.
That's
So,
funny.
yeah, it's also like a lot of work even on PC to optimize it, because it was working fine with previous versions of the runtime we were using. It works like a bit worse now. So yeah, we'll still be looking into that. But I mean, without like any load, it works like without freezes, thankfully. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's still on Oculus Quest. I don't know. It would probably kill it.
Yeah, unfortunately so. Yeah, I guess probably the server side would be the way to go there. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I keep thinking about like maybe there would be a way to you don't have it. It's not fully um it's not like a full model, but maybe it would be possible to render like 100 responses during the load screen or something like that. You know what I mean? Something that you could like
Yeah,
batch out and then not have to like do it live. But then you still run into the problem you don't have the server in the Oculus. You have to have some way to actually do that. But I feel like there might be some like creative or interesting way to do it. I don't know. I don't know. I'll think about
yeah. I
that.
mean, we'll definitely also like try to figure something out. Maybe even like local caching of some responses or
Hmm.
stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that could be a good idea too.
but like it's still yeah, still pretty complex task. I hope that the like the Nvidia, for example, right now is just the newer GPUs are so good at neural networks that it's like you don't need even like server GPUs to train them. They have like this Tensor Core, some like shit ton of optimizations and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And maybe the Qualcomm will do something similar. Maybe we should look into Qualcomm API or something like.
that's true. I didn't
Uh,
think about that. You can see that too with Facebook, especially. They probably would not hate having a better chip for that on their headset.
yeah, maybe hardware solution. Just plug in,
Yeah.
plug in the box.
Yes, try our AI chatbot. All you need is a Quest 2 and a 3090 with a USB cable. Goes right here.
It also has a fan on it, right? It's closer to your
That's
face.
right. It cools you off. That's funny. It does shock me how good the VR hardware has got, especially the mobile hardware. Are you
Yeah,
familiar with foveated rendering?
yeah. I've read about it.
So one of my hopes there is that if you think back to like the 90s, Moore's law was in full force, and everybody kind of knew it was in full force. There are like these things that you would do where it would be like you'd write this code and it would work terribly, like it just wouldn't even run. And instead of fixing the code, you'd go, let's wait a year. And the new shit would come out and it would work fine. You'd go, all right, solve that one, on to the next, which is, terrible practice. But like when you know that things are just going to keep getting that much faster, you can kind of cheat in that way. And I feel like VR is a little bit like that now too, with various things. But foveated rendering is really one of them where I see this technology coming around the bend. And if it works, and I think they've got it working in some of the prototype headsets, um, you should be able to do like as high quality or better with like much less processing power. You know what I mean? Because you're only rendering that one little spot. So my hope is that that's really going to free up the standalone headsets to get to even better resolution now than we have in like the PC headsets with less processing power, and hopefully you get some Moore's law still sprinkled on top of that. But like that's foveated rendering is like my theory of Moore's law for VR for like the next 5 years, maybe 10 years, however long it
I
takes
mean,
for that to become
combine it
mainstream.
combine it with DLSS, and you get
Mhm.
like really a shit ton of performance for free.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that. If you watch an interview with Palmer Luckey where he's talking about making the original CV1, he talks about he's like, I just bought all the VR headsets. Like there were like 100 of them made all over the world. I bought all of them. I took them all apart. I saw how they worked, and like I took the best ideas from everything and I put it together. It was like a very iterative process. Now, I mean, it's come a long way since then. You got John Carmack working on it. You got the Quest 2 is a great device. The Valve Index is a great device, but it's still something that even today, even on the good ones, feels pretty cobbled together. It feels like the iPhone 1 version, very very much. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think there's going to be a lot of little improvements like that. That we're going to see. I always laugh about, especially I have a Vive Index, or not Vive Index, an HTC Vive, and it's this thing is just a monstrosity. It's so big and bulky, and I just know I'm
I
gonna
mean,
like look back in years wearing sunglasses or some such, and just look at that toaster on my face.
I still have first Rift,
Nice.
like, and the cables and the sensors. I mean, I'm not using it now. I have Rift S on, but like I, I've gifted to my brother, and it's in Kiev now. But like it's still this. I remember setting up, like, buying the cable extensions to set up the sensors so that I could do
Yes.
like room scale.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a real operation. It's funny too because when I talk to people who can't quite people who don't really just buy VR in general, that's one of the things that they'll bring up is less so now that you have the Quest, but especially then it's just like people aren't gonna do this. People are gonna set this shit up in their house, like plug in a million cables, do this and that. It really is an operation, and then to keep it working too. And I always joke about this. There's a friend of mine who I play with occasionally, and he's a systems engineer, and you are developing an NLP application for VR, and like it's always the same thing for all three of us, which is like you get into VR chat or what other VR game, and you're like, I can't figure it out. I can't figure out the audio. I can figure out how to get like a cloud server back online, or how to like how to like s trace this like weird C bug, but nope, can't figure out the audio. So yeah,
I,
it's like it's always hard in the early days to see like how stuff like that is going to become mainstream, I think. But the internet was like that too. Everything is like that in early days.
yeah, and it's probably hard, like like the thing we talked kind of made me appreciate how far like the VR went in what, 8 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
it's pretty crazy. It's pretty wild to me to see how far it's gone. And I mostly play PC VR, but if you get into the Quest, it's even more so that way. For the most part, that's a closed-ish ecosystem. You can see like they have like the Quest only worlds in VR chat, or like some other games and stuff. But you can just tell when you get in there, it's like an order of magnitude more people, and it just feels like, well, okay, here's what it is. Like here, I've just stepped into the time machine. Like here's what it's gonna look like. It's like enough critical mass that you can just see it. It's right there, and it's still pretty early. You know, I think a big part of it. I've thought about this a lot. I think a big part of it is I think a lot of people are going to like get VR as kids and then grow up. You know what I mean? I don't, it may take longer for some people to fully convert who have never used it before, or who are a little bit more sort of skeptical of it. But like even I remember at one point when I was like when I first got the Quest 2, I had to go get the link cable to connect it to my PC to actually like test using it in Unreal. I'm like standing in the line at the store, and to that moment, like I had still not met anyone in real life who had actually had a Quest 2. I'm just like standing there with a link. I'm like, who's buying these things? And there's a kid in front of me in the line checking out with his mom. He's like, "Hey, that's the Quest 2. That's a link cable. That's what I have at home." Like, oh right, it's just like the entire next generation. Like that's who's buying all this shit.
I mean, that's also like pretty crazy because VR offers so much, like in terms of development tools, in terms of like productivity stuff. Like I've recently talked to the guy who showed me the gravity sketch, and it was so awesome. Like you can sculpt and model stuff in VR, and it feels like so much more natural than 3D Max, like moving these dots
Yeah,
with your mouse. Uh,
there's
I mean,
it's funny. There's almost a weird uncanny valley to it where on the one side you have like at the very low end the Quest 2 and you have like kids playing Rec Room or whatever. And that's it's a pretty good size amount of people. And on the other side you have like these really advanced applications of it like that you're talking about, or I've heard that like Royal Caribbean now uses it pretty intensely during the shipbuilding process. They'll have the designers going into VR and looking at different parts of the ship and improving things or changing things. But there's this gap, there's this valley in the middle of a lot of those things that the Royal Caribbean guys are doing or whoever is doing at like the highest levels is possible for just like a one-off hacker to do. If you know what you're
yeah.
doing or if you're willing to apply the work. And it's I always make this comparison with VR to the internet because I remember the internet being that way in the early days. I remember the internet being the exact same way where people would sort of complain about it. I remember people talking about like, oh, .coms. Why does everybody got to have a .com? What's this all about? And it was you had the sort of you had AOL and stuff like that, and the sort of like things that everybody knew about. But like if you were willing to put in the effort, you know what I mean? You could almost have the internet that exists today. It was pretty close. Like it's mostly the same moving parts, just put together better. And those are the places that are most exciting to me in VR today. Kind of project that you're working on. That one where you said they were procedurally generating rooms and stuff, or just some of the weird one-off VR chat worlds. We didn't go anywhere other than here. Maybe some other time I can take you on a tour of some other ones, but the ones where you really feel like you're just taking a step into the future. And it's like it was today where everything's buggy, nothing quite works right. I've got a fucking toaster on my face, but it's like, yep, this is it. This is the future. Like I see what it's gonna be like. I see where everything's set up. Like I see where I need to get to in 5 years. But no, I just love that about VR. I've loved that since the first day I ever tried it. It really just feels like you're just climbing into a time machine.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in 10 years we'll be sitting there like, you know, we liked VR before it became mainstream,
It's true. It's true. That's when I'll become really insufferable. Back in my day.
Back in my day, we wore toasters on our heads.
That's right. Well, you kids got sunglasses now. We had to use smooth locomotion uphill both ways in the VR snow.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. What time is it here? All right. Well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and hop off here. If you don't have anything else, but it was
No,
great talking to you, man.
yeah, it was.
I'm gonna
Thanks.
check out that demo. And I'll message you about the project. I'll try and get kind of an idea of how involved it would be and how capable I would actually be of doing it too. But I'll hit you up on Discord and let you know. Either way, though, I'm gonna check out that demo and maybe I'll try and make a video of it for you as well because I think that would really go a long way for showing
If you
people
want,
how crazy.
I can set up it for VR and build it and send you.
Oh, that would be perfect. If you don't mind, I would really appreciate that
Yeah,
because
sure.
then I don't
Like
even have to figure out Unity.
yeah, it's gonna be like an hour work, so
Okay.
it's
Well,
easy.
no rush. But yeah, send that to me and I'll check it out. And
Awesome.
I'll make a video and then maybe that can inspire you guys for what the video might look like, or you can just use that one if you want.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
No problem. Well, hey man, it was great talking to you. Let's hang out here again sometime. I'll give you a
Great
tour
talking
next
with you.
time. I'll show you some worlds that I have saved. Maybe we can get the audio working.
Yeah, let's try VR chat. I did jump on some worlds before, in the beginning, and yeah, it seems interesting. I would like to
Yeah, they've got
check
some
it out.
weird ones. Did you by chance ever watch that show Stargate? It's like an older show. It's sci-fi show.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man, have I got some shit to show you? They got a couple Stargate worlds that are really cool. They got a bunch of neat
Oh,
stuff in
nice.
here though. I saw you have Pavlov too. You can play that sometime too if you want. It's a favorite of mine.
Oh yeah, cool. Let's do that.
Cool.
I love Pavlov.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. I play it all the time. Well, cool, man. All right, awesome.
Cool.
I'll hit you up on Discord. This is great talking to you though. Thanks for sharing all
Yeah.
the stuff with me, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you too. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Take it easy.